welcome to the channel once again. For the last few, especially on 3 videos, we have seen how the scenes that revolved in Act 4, Scene 1. So in the last video, I had completed even with the text also as far as Act 4, Scene 1 is concerned. Now today, we are going to move on to Act 5, Scene 1, or rather the last scene of our text of the Tempest. Now, before going to Act 5, Scene 1, I would like to introduce to you with the theme of reconciliation and mercy. Now, Shakespearean romantic comedies, or the difference between Shakespearean romantic comedies with the tragedies rather, is that in Shakespearean plays, the revenge that has always played a very, very important role. In numerous tragedies where we find the kings, there has been conspiracies, there have been themes of revenge where there have been bloodshed. Now, the simple way, how can we differentiate between a tragedy and a comedy, rather romantic comedy? So in a tragedy, it is revenge that always wins. If we take the greatest examples of the great tragedies written by Shakespeare, such as Macbeth, Othello, or Hamlet, any other tragedies, if you take the examples, you'll find that it is revenge that always wins. Now, unlike a tragedy, in a comedy, especially in a romantic comedy, so before coming to the Tempest, let us go back to our class 10th lessons. Let us go back to our Merchant of Venice, which all of us, we have already seen. So even in that play also, revenge, or the revenge of Shylock, that has played a very, very important role. From the first, from Act 1, Scene 3 onwards, that revenge, or the thirst for revenge, that has been a prominent feature of the play. And throughout the play, the incidents, it revolves around Shylock's desire to take his revenge. But if you remember, when the trial scene it begins, Portia, with her memorable speech, or the speech on mercy, she tries to soften up the burning anger, the burning passion for revenge that was there within Shylock. And ultimately we see it is not the revenge, but it is love, or it is mercy that ultimately wins. By lawfully or unlawfully, that is a debatable matter as far as Merchant of Venice is concerned. So the teachings of the lesson that we get from Merchant of Venice, that it is revenge that always defeats in the hands of love and mercy. Now, almost a similar feature, almost a similar characteristic that is also visible as far as our Tempest is concerned. Now, if you remember the play itself, in one of the videos I talked about the plots, something called subplots of the play. And if you remember the main plot for the Tempest, that is obviously Shakespeare, his anger for the fact that he has been thrown out of his dukedom, and ultimately his desire to take his revenge. So the entire play, the setups, how the characters, how the royal people, the enemies of Prospero, they have been separated from each other from the very first scene, if you remember, as soon as the storm starts, and how the characters, they have been dispersed in groups. They were separated from each other, and they kept on roaming from one part to the other part of the play throughout the play. So it is only in Act 5, Scene 1, where all the characters, this is the only scene in the play. Even in case of Merchant of Venice also, we saw that it is only in Act 5, Scene 1, where all the characters are present on the stage. So as far as Act 5, Scene 1 is concerned, few points I've mentioned out here. The number one, obviously, about which I started my lecture with this. Now, that is called theme of reconciliation and theme of mercy. Now, reconciliation is a very, very important word as far as Shakespearean romantic comedies are concerned. Reconciliation, that is obviously the ending of all the confusions, doubts, or whatsoever that was being there throughout the play. And that is also, there's also one particular scene in Merchant of Venice, obviously Act 5, Scene 1. And if you remember, till that very scene, Act 5, Scene 1, there were so many doubts as far as the audience was concerned. And there was a very, very important doubt regarding the ring episode. So ultimately, reconciliation, in simple words, you can say, where all the doubts, all the confusions that was there in the minds of the audience, that get solved, and the audience, they are left with a very clear-cut clear-cut ending of the play. So out here, the reconciliation, you can talk about the enemies of Prospero. Prospero had been searching for every possible opportunity where he can take his revenge back from his three enemies, namely obviously his friend, his brother, that is Antonio, the king Alonso, and obviously Sebastian. So reconciliation is that very scene where Prospero decides not to deal with anger, not to deal with revenge, but to show his mercy, because there's a memorable speech which Shakespeare rather through the mouthpiece of Prospero he delivers to the audience, that the rarer action is in the virtue, not in the vengeance. So it is a mercy, or it is love, or it is forgiveness, which is the most rarest qualities that is available in the human being, but it is not the revenge which is the rarest quality. So most of the people, they might be guided by revenge, but this is not going to be the case with Prospero. So the one of the prominent theme of the play, rather in Act 5 Scene 1, that is obviously the theme of reconciliation and the theme of mercy. Now when the text starts, I have also planned to go through the text as well, at least some part of the text as well. So the scene, it takes place before Prospero's cell. If you remember the Prospero's cell, the previous scene also, Act 4 Scene 1 also. Now this is the only exception with Act 4 Scene 1 and Act 5 Scene 1, where both the scenes, they actually take place near Prospero's cell. So, and we find that Prospero, if you remember in the last scene also, he ordered for that magical garment which I mentioned the other day also, the three important weapon, if you remember, that Prospero has. Number one, his book of magic, and is this magical garment, and he has got a magical wand. So these three weapons that are always been useful for Prospero whenever he is required to do some magic, or whenever he requires to do some charm. So he ordered in the last scene, if you remember, when he was punishing the three criminals, the three conspirators, namely Caliban, Trinculo, and Stefano. So now we find that once again Prospero appears in wearing that magical garment, and obviously his faithful servant Ariel too enters along with him. So Prospero, he starts from the line number 1. I'll start with this. Now he seems to be contented that all the plan that he devised, the plan to take his revenge from the conspirators, the plan to take his revenge from his enemies. So now he seems to be contented, he seems to be satisfied, and this is what we saw in case of Act 4 Scene 1 also, where he seemed to be satisfied with the trials that he tested out of Ferdinand, and he seems to be satisfied, and he decides to have a engagement ceremony. So taking a clue from the previous scene also, even in this scene also, Prospero seems to be contented, where he says that now does my project gather to a heat, my charms crack not, my spirits obey, and time goes upright with carriage. So he seemed to be satisfied that all that he planned, all the devices that he made, everything has gone smoothly as far as he planned or he devised. There are not a single difficulty that he had to face. Now he asked for the time. What is the time of the day? Ariel. Now the reply that comes from Ariel, that also gives us an introduction to the duration of the play. So the reply that comes from Ariel regarding the timing of the day, Ariel says that on the 6th hour. Now this is the 6th hour, or you can say 6 o'clock in the modern world, we can call it as a 6 o'clock in the evening. So at which time, my lord, you said our work should cease. So Ariel also dares to remind his master by saying that my lord, this is the time which you decided that at the beginning when you started planning for your revenge, you said that you devised for the fact that this is the time by when our entire plan will be executed. Now, there's a turn for Prospero. He says that I did say so when I first raised the tempest. So, when I first raised the tempest, it takes us back to Act 1, Scene 1. If you remember, the play itself begins with a very horrible, very deadly storm. So, Prospero also remembers and he said that yes, this is what I planned. I planned that by the 6th hour of the day, the entire plan that I devised, it will be executed. So, say my spirit, how fears the king and the followers. Now the job of Ariel is obviously to roam around this island and to get back all the informations regarding the conspirators. Now this is what we saw in case of Act 4 Scene 1 also, where Ariel comes back with the informations regarding the conspirators, that is Caliban, Stefano and Trincolo, and he says that the last time that he met them, he found them to be in the dirty mantled pool. So once again, now this is the time for Ariel to give up the informations regarding the other group. The other group, if you remember, there have been 3 groups. One particular group that consisting Ferdinand himself, where Miranda and Prospero, 2 are the members. The other group, that is the group of the conspirators, Trinculo, Stefano, and obviously Caliban. And the next group, or which we came across in Act 2 Scene 1, if you remember, which consists the King Alonso, the brother to King Alonso, that is Sebastian, Gonzalo, brother to Prospero, that is Antonio, and other lords such as Adrian and Francisco. So now in this particular scene, as I have mentioned here as the second point out here, that Ariel's report. So Ariel is reporting his master regarding the condition of the other group, the group which I have just named. So he said that where exactly they are right now. So Ariel starts by saying that confined together. So all of them, they have been confined together in the same fashion as you gave in charge. So I have made them to confine together as you ordered me to do so. Exactly in the same manner I have imprisoned them. Now where? Just as you left them, all prisoners, sir, in the lime grove which weather paints your cell. So now lime trees, if you have noticed, lime trees are full of thorns. So Ariel is informing his master by saying that the lime trees or the lime grove which is surrounding your cell, like as a kind of a precaution to save his cell from any of the intruders. So he is saying that all your enemies, they have been imprisoned together in that lime garden, or you can say lime grove, which surrounds your cell. Now they cannot budge till your release. So Ariel also assures the fact that till the time you order or you permit till the time they cannot move from there. So they have been caught together. So and he continues by saying that the king, his brother and yours. So the king, obviously, that is King Alonso, his brother, the brother to King Alonso, Sebastian, and yours, that is your brother or Antonio. So all of them abide, all 3 distracted, and the remainder mourning over them. So all of them, this is what Ariel is reporting, not to Prospero but also for the sake of the audience also, because from a long time, if you remember from that harpy episode, in that banquet scene, from then onwards we have not been introduced to what is the location of these 3 characters or these characters. So finally he is reporting to the audience that actually the king, his brother and yours abide, all 3 distracted, and the remainder mourning over them. So 3 of them, the main criminals or your 3 enemies, they have, I found them to be distracted. Now distracted out here, they are out of their mind, as if they are unconscious now. They are in such a state that they are unable to recognize the things immediately after them or immediately in front of them. So and the rest of the members of the group, all of them, they are mourning for the loss of the fact that none of these characters, none of these three characters, they are in their normal state. So the remainder, the rest of the people, they are crying over the fate, that how they from a journey through the ship, now how they have been caught in such a difficult situation in this desolate island. Now this is the time for another important character of the play, or one of the chief important character of the play, that is our Gonzalo. So Ariel also informs us about Gonzalo also, and he says that, but chiefly him whom you termed, sir, the good old Lord Gonzalo. His tears run down his beard like winter's drop from the eaves of reeds. So there's a simile that he uses out here. So he says that regarding the other person whom you yourself address as dear sir, whom you yourself pays a lot of respect, that is none other than our Gonzalo. And what is the state of Gonzalo? Now Gonzalo, he is crying. Now Gonzalo have got a beard, okay? Now his face is full of beard. So he's comparing the ice drops that the sleet that drops on the thatched roof of the house or the cottages. He's comparing his tears to be the sleet or the ice drops that are shedding through his beard. And next, he says that your charm, the magical charm that you have created so strongly works on them, that if you now beheld them, your affections would become tender. Now this statement is very, very important. Remember, this statement is not been made by any human being, because Ariel is not a human being. Ariel is a airy spirit. It doesn't have flesh and blood and heart, or it can't feel. But Ariel is making a powerful statement out here. He's saying that he is trying to convince his master by saying that, I'm sure, my lord, if you had personally seen their state or their condition, I'm sure that you too have been melted, you too have been felt pity to see their conditions. But I can't feel, because I can't dare to feel, because I am just an airy creature. I don't have my sense organs like a human being like you. Now Prospero, dost you think so, spirit? Do you really think so, that they are in such a helpless state that I too have felt pity to see their conditions? Now see what Ariel is saying. Now Ariel, he says that mine would, sir, were I a human. Just what I said. He said that if I were a human being, if I could cry, if I could feel, if I had sense organs like you or any other human being, I too could have cried. But I can't do that. I am not a human being. Now see what Prospero is saying. So Prospero, he starts by saying, this is what in line number 24, when you go through the text. So, and mine shall hast thou, which art but air, a touch, a feeling of their affections, and shall not myself one of their kind. So if you, Ariel, who is made up of airy particles, which is not made up of flesh and blood like me or like them. So what do you think, if you are feeling pity, but what about me? I am a fellow human being like those mine enemies. So if you are feeling pity, then what about me? Because I am a kind of them. I am a fellow human being like them. And he continues by saying that one of their kind that relish as all as sharply passion as they be kindlier moved than thou though with their high wrongs I am stuck to the quick. So he's saying that the tenderness which you have shown. So what do you think, that if I, being a fellow human being, have got same sense organ, won't I have felt as piteous as you are? Though whenever I think about the wrong, the crime that they committed, every time I forget to show my mercy. So my lecture, if you remember, with which I started, the fight between revenge and mercy. revenge and mercy. So till this particular point on time also, Prospero is debating over the fact that which one he should choose, whether he should choose the path of revenge which he has been following from a long time, or should he show mercy. So this is what the debate over this revenge and mercy, and what Prospero ultimately decides. This is what I'm gonna see in the next video. Thank you.